ShowRatings.tv Pilot Roundtable, a Southgate Media Group podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Tremblay, and I'm the editor-in-chief of the television website, ShowRatings.tv, where you can read reviews of your favorite TV shows and rate and discuss them yourself. Today, we're continuing our look at the upcoming pilots of the 2014-2015 TV season, focusing on The CW. Here to talk about what's coming up on the CW, she's a staff writer for ShowRatings.tv, Supernatural superfan, social media guru, and she's always internet surfing like a menace. Sophia Porter, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. That was a very interesting introduction.
I tried to cover all the bases. It's great to finally have you on the podcast. I've tried to get you for basically every episode, but here you are.
You have. It's okay. Here, I'm finally here. You know, I cleared my busy schedule for you, Kyle, as always.
I'm so appreciative of this. So, your relationship with the CW, I feel like is pretty. You're pretty intertwined with that.
I am pretty intertwined with the CW. It's kind of embarrassing to say that.
Good. Let's start with it.
But yeah, I've been watching Supernatural for many years, and I'm on the Arrow train. What else am I doing? I don't even know what shows the CW has anymore.
Well, Supernatural and Arrow are two.
Supernatural and Arrow. I don't watch the Vampire Diaries, surprisingly.
You don't.
You know, that's the one I don't do.
I've watched more Vampire Diaries than you have,
and you know what? That makes me so happy.
Well, now I've embarrassed myself, so we're even.
And it's on a podcast. Like, you can't go back from that.
No, this is. Oh boy.
You can't go back, Kyle. Oh God.
Well, I could edit it, but I probably won't.
You're not allowed.
Oh, fine.
I'm gonna make a note to put that in at random intervals during this.
Oh, you're gonna reference it?
I'm just gonna reference the fact that you've seen more episodes of the Vampire Diaries than I have.
Oh boy. What have I gotten myself into? Okay. This feels like the Red Wedding. You're ambushing me.
If only.
We're both Game of Thrones fans, and so... Okay, we're already off the rails.
Yeah, we are.
So the point of all this is that you watch a fair amount of Supernatural, or of the CW, a lot of Supernatural.
Too much Supernatural, I would say.
Quite possibly.
Yeah.
The CW as a network only programs 10 hours of TV a week, so there's not a whole lot of slots here. And given that shows like Supernatural, Arrow, Vampire Diaries, all those aforementioned shows are pretty well established, in the fall, the CW is premiering just 2 new shows, although 2 more will join them later. And so we're going to talk about those right now. Are you ready?
I'm born ready.
Born ready.
This is what I was born to do.
Like Pacers guard Lance Stevenson, born ready.
Exactly.
Good. So, as always, I have to make the reminder that neither of us have watched any of the pilots we're about to talk about. We have watched trailers and read about them, but you should take our opinions with a grain of salt. And instead of doing a thumbs up or thumbs down, we're going to be grading on a scale of will watch, might watch, and avoid like the plague. So
good. So dramatic.
I worked so hard on that scale.
I believe it. I really do.
It's like a scale.
You wasted hours.
Shamefully, yes. I feel like in numerical terms, that scale is like a 10, an 8, and then a 0.
It really is. It's like the might watch isn't even in the middle. Because when you say you might watch a show, you're pretty much giving
You're interested in it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so I'm making people commit. There's no waffling here.
No waffling.
All right. Speaking of no waffling, I don't expect you to be waffling on the first series we're about to talk about because it's The Flash. Yes, I wish we had sound effects. I wish I had a soundboard in front of me so I could play heavenly sound effects. The Flash is described as by the CW as Barry Allen is a Central City assistant police forensics investigator. What a job.
Not just a CSI, you know. No, you can't say CSI. We gotta go all out.
He's an assistant forensics investigator who arrives in Starling City to look into a series of unexplained robberies that may have a connection to a tragedy in his past. A comic book fanboy. Sounds like someone I know. Barry is obsessed with the Arrow, unaware that working with Oliver and Felicity to solve the crime has brought him right into the dangerous world of the vigilante.
Dun, dun, dun.
Here we go. So, Sophia, what do you think about this?
Oh, goodness. I am so excited for this show. I swear, I was excited when they announced they were doing Arrow.
Yeah.
And then, and I was like, oh my God, they're like opening up the Justice League like possibilities. Like, I don't even know what I'm going to do with myself. And now they've done that even more by introducing the Flash. And Arrow has been a pretty successful show on the CW. It had a few bumps in the road, and there's no denying that. I mean,
No.
we tore it apart quite a few times.
We're on record.
We are on record. It's true. But where it's gone, like this past season, like the past 5 or so episodes of Arrow have been so good, and so I have so much faith in the Flash because number one, the Flash is just such a great superhero. Like he's a staple.
Sure.
I feel like, and so I'm just so excited to see what they're going to do with it. Plus, I'm getting into it early. They cast Grant Gustin, and you know how I feel about him, Kyle.
I do. I don't know if the audience does, although
the audience is about to hear a lot about him.
Okay. Should I just go get dinner or something? Can I just leave you to talk?
Maybe that might be a possibility. I really like Grant Gustin. Back when I used to watch, yeah, I know. Who would have thought? The biggest thing would have been I said I hate him.
Yeah.
But then no, that's not going to happen.
Would have been a quick turn on this podcast.
It would have. Oh my goodness. I used to watch Glee. Not proud of that, but he was on it, and every week I would tune in and hope that he would be on it because he was so nice with his voice, and when he sang "Smooth Criminal," I lost my mind. So I'm very happy with the casting. I was surprised. But because I thought they would do someone older, but they didn't, and I really like that. I'm really happy with the casting, and
I know you like it.
Oh yeah. I'm overall just really excited. They haven't done anything wrong so far.
Yeah, well, a couple things on your monologue just now.
Sorry.
First of all, what is the Justice League? No, I'm kidding.
Oh, Kyle.
No, as I've said in every episode so far, and will continue to say, I'm not a comic book person. Everyone who's been a guest so far, I believe, is a comic book person, so that's great. Mm-hmm. But
should you really be running these? I mean,
no,
honestly.
I took it by force. It's I just sat on the throne, and here we are.
The Game of Thrones.
Yes, the Iron Throne, obviously.
The Iron Throne.
But I think what you said about Arrow having some creative struggles, but getting it together at the end, speaks to my one and only concern about The Flash, which is the CW forces all of its shows to do 20-plus episode seasons.
Oh, God,
and if you have like 24 episodes of a superhero action drama, you're guaranteed to have like a dozen that are filler, boring, and you're guaranteed to have to invent these romantic arcs to occupy space in episodes. And like Arrow, to fill time, has these horrible or often horrible flashbacks that feel meaningless.
Hey, those aren't that bad.
They come and go.
They got very interesting.
Yeah, well, there's hope. There's hope for the future, but they have had some rough times with the flashbacks. And Arrow, just so much of Arrow episodes to me. Now, I'm not speaking about the final arc of the season, which everyone agrees was excellent. But the sort of meat of the Arrow season, like episode 14, is I feel like is just filling time and like sort of going in circles and just trying to play out the string. And so I feel like a show like that, and I'm assuming like The Flash, would benefit from maybe a 12-episode season where you could tell a enclosed story without having to put in all these filler hours. So my one concern with this show is that it maybe will lag a bit in the middle storytelling-wise, the same way that Arrow does.
You know, you bring up a really good point, and this is a song that I've been singing for a while. For the audience that doesn't know, I reviewed Teen Wolf.
Yeah.
And it only has 12 episode seasons.
Yes.
And, there's no time for a filler episode. Each time, I tune in, it's just you start it and it just goes. And there's no time to worry about the love story that is kind of there but not really there. I mean, I'm not saying that Teen Wolf does a great job, but I'm saying every time I sign up for an episode, I know I'm in for a movie length experience.
Right. And yeah, and well, Teen Wolf, don't they run 2 seasons a year?
Yeah, well, actually, I'm not sure because I just tuned in. I caught up over the summer.
I see.
But they did that this year. They
This year,
released
yeah.
one over the summer. They released one over the summer, and then they released one in the fall.
Yeah, and so
And now they're releasing another one in like a month.
yeah,
And I'm like,
they just keep
what?
going. But
Yep.
I like that where you have a 12 episode stories. And
Yeah.
I hope that the CW figures this out because,
Me too.
I mean, it's one thing to have a mid-season finale, but like in this season of Arrow, I didn't feel like there was any like really strong distinction between the half of the season that ran in the fall and the half that ran in the spring. Like it wasn't like a single
Mid-season
story.
finale feels like so long ago.
Yeah, it does.
And that was the whole the ghosts thing with Tommy coming back, which was so well done. Like it was beautiful, but it feels like so long ago. And if that had just been like, that I don't know, if that had been like the 6th episode, and then what we had just watched, earlier in the month had been like the 7th, 8th, and 9th,
Yeah.
and then that would have been great. That would have been so much more interesting. But instead, we got that. Oh, I don't even remember what happened.
Yeah.
Like I try and forget about it.
Yeah,
honestly.
there's just a lot of soft stuff in the middle, and Arrow does great premieres and does great finales, and has a handful of great episodes sprinkled throughout, but it has a lot of filler hours, and I think the Flash will play out the same way. Now, whether that's a problem or not is a different story, because
Right.
I mean, there's certainly a case to be made, and I still watch Arrow and going to watch next year, where it's, you sort of, you deal with it. And overall, it's still good to have on the air. And, the Flash could be the same thing.
It's interesting because, they have so much stuff to work with, given the comic books. And I would feel like even though there are 22, 23 episodes a season, every episode should still be interesting because they have so much, like, stuff to work with.
Yes.
And it's very frustrating that in every case, both the Arrow is really the only superhero show I watch, but the Arrow, like, you would think that they would be able to go into the comic books and pull something out and be like, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, there it is.
Always say thank you, ma'am.
Always say thank you, ma'am. Gotta be nice.
I learned that from Michael Scott. So, okay, you said Arrow is the only comic book show you watch, and I want to ask about that. Because
is it? I can't even remember.
Well, there aren't that many comic book shows on now. There will be come next
Oh,
fall.
there will be. There will be.
Listen, we're not going to talk about Constantine.
Oh, Kyle. Give me an entire podcast to do that, and I will talk about it. I will talk about it till the cows come home and pigs learn to fly.
Listen. This is the pilot podcast roundtable. So in the fall, we will give you that opportunity. But for now, we're going to hold off.
Fine, fair. I'll take it.
Okay, but another high-profile show, and I guess it's not as much a comic book show, or it is. I don't know anything about this. But Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah, well, that's not a comic book show.
But
they created Phil Coulson and like did this whole storyline about him that's nothing to do with like the comics and all that. Like,
sure, but it's in the Marvel universe.
I mean,
the way that this is in the DC universe, right?
Exactly.
So
I'm glad DC is finally starting to like do something, because Marvel is just like, man, it is Marvel's world, and we are all living in it. Well, poor DC.
DC's got they have Arrow now. They're gonna have the Flash, and they're gonna have Gotham. Yeah, so
Gotham.
I just recorded a podcast about Ricky, and we talked at length about Gotham.
How could you? Oh my God, that looks so cool.
Of course. Well, I hate to inform you that I was a little bit wary of it, but
Of course you were. It's fine. Ben McKenzie.
Oh boy, him versus
man.
Grant Gustin. Who wins? Quick.
Oh God, don't even. Oh, I can't go there. I can't go there because Ben McKenzie played Ryan Atwood on the OC, and that's just like a whole different ball game.
Now you're just saying names that I don't know. So
that's okay.
I need to get to my question, which is, I felt like having watched the first few episodes of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., the overwhelming sense I had with that show is that it was shackled by the world in which it is a part of. As in, they're afraid to do anything meaningful because they're a part of this larger universe and they don't want to upset anything. As the season went on, from reports, it seems like they're more comfortable with actually having stakes and having villains, and by all counts, the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. season got better. Arrow, I never have that sense. Why is it that in a superhero show like Arrow with an established property, it seems like they have freedom to tell most any story they want. Whereas a Marvel show like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., they seem very, very limited by the stories they can tell.
Okay, well, I think first off, because in Marvel, they have chosen to keep it all connected.
Okay.
They have chosen to write Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. as these movies were coming out and have it tie in. And so you could watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. or you could not watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and things in the Marvel Universe will be going the exact same direction. It's all on the same track and it's all moving towards the same thing. Like the whole Hydra situation at the end of Captain America Winter Soldier, like that is all to do with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
But doesn't the Flash exist in the Batman universe?
It does. So I'm going to do that.
Okay.
So the thing is, if you really think about it, I feel like DC was like, holy crap, because Marvel is becoming so big, we should probably start, doing things our way. But the problem is, I think a lot of it has to do with the Dark Knight trilogy. Because you can't put that universe into the same universe with the Flash and the Arrow because it's so, it's all about Batman and it's all about, like, his life. So they have to work with these two different universes in the same, comic book overarching thing, and so I think that right now what they're trying to do is create a smaller DC universe where the Flash and Arrow can coexist, but I don't know that we'll ever get to see the Justice League come out because I don't know that DC will want to, because DC tends to do really dark and gritty movies. I mean, look at the Dark Knight trilogy for an example, and they're doing this whole Superman versus Batman thing right now, and I don't know that that's ever going to connect with.
Right, but isn't Ra's al Ghul someone who brought up an Arrow, like heavily connected to Batman? Like
heavily,
isn't there overlap?
He is heavily connected. Yes, there's a huge overlap to Ra's al Ghul, and like that. And I thought that was really cool when they first mentioned him in Arrow. I was like, wait, maybe they are planning on doing something. I don't know that Liam Neeson is gonna show up because that's who played Ra's al Ghul. And,
Liam Neeson?
I'm pretty. Liam Neeson. Like, I'm pretty sure I'm right. It's been a really long time since I've seen like the first Batman movie. But I do think that the reason is because, they just set the bar so high with, the Dark Knight trilogy that it's just not possible for them to connect everything.
Yeah, and that's fair. It does seem a little more separated. Although I will say the final 3-episode arc of Arrow did play out as darkly, or not as darkly, but in the same dark vein as like a DC movie. Where the city gets taken and people are being murdered in the streets, that felt considerably darker than maybe what Arrow is on a week-to-week basis.
And I'm hoping that that's what they'll kind of continue to do. I think that the Flash is going to be a little bit more lighthearted because
it seems that way, right?
The Flash tends to be the comic relief of the Justice League.
Right.
So I think that Arrow is going to continue to get darker and darker. Yes. I hope. This is what I hope. I don't want it to be Oliver Queen's on an island. I want it to be Oliver Queen is working to build up this city that was completely demolished, And I think that that's going to be a way more interesting story arc. And the Flash will kind of be there to be like, oh, but there's happiness in this universe.
Yeah, and I love that. That's a great way for the CW to distinguish their two series now. To have one be the sort of lighter, funnier one, and one be the darker, heavier one. And I feel like they're in a position to do that if they want to take it. It's there. No,
I definitely agree. I think that it's going to be a very interesting juxtaposition. And now that the Arrow doesn't have to do all of it,
right?
And it can explore this darker avenue. And I think it's going to be a really interesting turn. And I think it was a great, smart idea for them to pick up the Flash and for the CW to actually do that, because the Flash knows. The CW knows what works for them.
Yes.
It's either superheroes or it's supernatural.
That's it.
And
sci-fi, fantasy,
all of it. So I'm really glad. And they paired the Flash with Supernatural on Tuesday nights, which is just like, oh my god, I was gonna be the death of me, I swear.
But not with Arrow, which is interesting.
I think
it's interesting.
They're giving us a break,
Yeah.
Which is nice.
Sure. Yeah, I could see them spreading the love, and I feel like they have a lot invested in the Flash.
They do.
Considering they nested the pilot into an Arrow or two arc episodes on Arrow,
which was great.
Yeah,
It was really well done.
It went really well. And
it had people loving it.
Yes, and I think they have a lot of confidence in it, and they're going to launch it. They're going to use Supernatural to help launch it. Create that
smart.
Big Tuesday night. And
because that did not work for Supernatural's spinoff.
Yes. Well, we're going to get to that in a second.
Okay.
But we'll only touch on it briefly. I don't want to get your whole rant on.
Okay, yeah, no. You can read my review of it.
Yes, absolutely. But I think The Flash will be, assuming it launches successfully, the following season will be given its own night. The way that now we have Arrow anchoring a night, Supernatural anchoring a night, and Vampire Diaries anchoring a night.
Yeah, it'll either be given a Monday or a Friday slot, or it'll be the come to Wednesday night one if Arrow doesn't do as well. You know, we'll see. And I don't know that the Vampire Diaries. I don't know if it's going to be Supernatural's last season or the Vampire Diaries' last season coming up in the fall. So we'll see, and I'm excited.
Yes. So I feel like I know your answer already, but Sophia, for The Flash, will watch, might watch, or avoid like the plague.
Oh, Kyle, what do you... I mean, honestly,
I have to ask.
I'm going to 100% watch this show. I'm going to see it through, hopefully. And I'm so excited for it. I have high hopes.
Yes, and despite...
So we'll watch.
Of course. There we go. Got it on the record.
Yeah.
Despite my reservations about any and all comic book material, as someone who watches Arrow and who exists on the internet, I feel like I am certainly going to watch this show, at least give it, a handful of episodes and make sure it's as interesting as I hope it will be. And so I am also a will watch for The Flash.
Yay!
That's our victory song.
That's my victory song.
Before we get to the rest of the CW schedule, which is considerably darker, let's talk.
Starting off happy.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about a pilot that wasn't, which is the Supernatural Bloodlines, I believe it was called. Kind of assumed to be picked up, people thought, so much so that Supernatural itself launched it, and then it was passed on by the CW. As a Supernatural superfan, what are your thoughts?
There was no question as to why it was passed on. It was one of those hours of television that I sat through staring at the clock and just begging it to be over.
Oh no.
It was horrible. And, it was a really cool premise. Quick, premise is there are 5 supernatural families in Chicago that run it. That's the basic premise of what Bloodlines is. And it was really, really cool and really, I don't know, it was smart. I love it. I live in Chicago and I was really excited to watch this and to be a part of it. But it fell so flat.
Oh boy.
And I hate it because I think a lot of it had to do with the actors.
Really?
Because the writers, they've been writing Supernatural. They know what they're doing. And it hurts me to blame, the actors, but it all felt stale. And it felt thrown together, and it felt like they were not prepared at all. Because it was a completely new set of characters, it's a completely new storyline, and we didn't know any of them. And so we had to take the time in this episode of Supernatural, it served as a backdoor pilot, to get to know these characters in a way that would make us want to watch it in months from now.
Yeah.
And it was a train wreck.
Yeah, and I feel like the CW learned its lesson from the originals, spinning off Vampire Diaries, because the originals made it to a second season, but barely, and the ratings are pretty dismal. And I feel like they saw the writing was on the wall, that's where we were headed with this, and decided to pull the plug early. So probably a good call.
I popped champagne when they announced they weren't picking it up, the Supernatural Bloodlines. I was just thank the Lord, because I know I'd have to watch it.
Of course.
I'd have to waste my time on that. I really did feel like I needed that hour of my life back. And I've sat through some pretty bad episodes of Supernatural, but it was a shame. Ugh.
Well, I'm glad that they saved you that 1 hour a week.
Oh my God, me too.
Yeah. So let's get on to the other pilot premiering on the CW this fall. I need a music cue here because I want to play something ominous like Hell's Bells, because this series is called Jane the Virgin. The tagline is, a series of surprising and unforeseen events causes a hardworking religious young Latina to be accidentally artificially inseminated, and it's adapted from a Venezuelan telenovela. Sophia, What do you think of Jane the Virgin?
Kyle, I, um, I, you know,
And we're
um,
done.
I appreciate. All right, here we go. Okay,
Here we
I
go.
appreciate that the CW is trying to branch out in terms of not doing a completely whitewashed cast.
Yes.
And Jane the Virgin is about a Latina girl, and it's all it's all completely like there are barely any white people cast in the show. I was looking over the cast list, and I was like, wow, that's actually really cool. However, that doesn't mean that the show is good.
Correct.
And like you sent me that 30-second, I don't know, preview thing, and I could barely sit through it. I was like, this is horrible. This is just like, what are they doing? This must be an April Fool's joke that they're dragging it out for a little bit.
Yeah, I've watched every trailer that's been released by all 5 networks, and I could say with a relative certainty, like 75% certainty, that this is the worst that I've seen.
Yeah.
This looks awful. And I say that knowing that I'm a man and this show is intended exclusively for women. This is a very female-centric show. But having said that, I feel like I can still judge impartially how a trailer looks. And this looks wildly contrived.
I mean, the thing is, it's like, if you compare, like, like I've said it before, that the CW knows what works for them. And this doesn't even fall close to the categories that the CW normally does. I mean, they used to do more, non-supernatural kind of stuff with like Melrose Place, but that also fell through.
And they
did Gossip Girl.
They still have Heart of Dixie on.
And the Carrie Diaries, unless that got canceled.
That's gone.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. That kind of thing.
And so I appreciate that they're trying, but God, like the premise,
yes,
and the name, like, what? Jane the Virgin? Are you joking?
Yeah.
Like,
well, this is dead on the premise. Like, as soon as the premise is virgin birth, you're in trouble right off the bat. And it looks flat. It looks dead. It just looks terrible.
Completely awful, and it makes me sad that they wasted their money on that.
Yeah, and they're wasting one of their 10 time slots on this too.
Exactly, and I understand what they're trying to do, but this is not the way to do it. This is not going to draw in, their normal viewership. And it's just going to lose the viewers, it's going to lose the money, and I like, honestly, were they high?
Well,
I mean, it's a possibility when they were like, "Oh, Jane the Virgin, like, we got one more slot to fill up."
I feel like this is a coldly cynical attempt to court a very specific audience.
Yes, and it's not gonna work.
Yeah, and it's too transparent. It's too obvious that that's what it is. Like, you can't. I feel like when a network so obviously targets a demographic that they are not normally appealing to, people see through that, and they're going to see through this and see that this is, at least from the trailer and from the description and from everything we've seen, this looks like a very hollow series that is based more around the audience that it's intended for, as opposed to telling anything resembling a compelling story or an original story or anything like that. So, yeah.
And it's a comedy.
Allegedly.
It's also, I'm like, what? That does not sound like a comedy. A girl who becomes accidentally artificially inseminated. That doesn't sound like the makings of a comedy. I mean, and maybe, if it had been a drama, it would be a little more interesting, ooh, she's got to deal with, like, the pressures of society and her family. Right. It could be, it could be this Latina version of Parenthood, and it would draw this audience, and it would be really interesting. But instead, they made it a comedy, which is just a stupid move.
And it's based on a telenovela, which I'm not an expert, but those aren't comedies. Those are soap operas.
Right.
So,
and it's just so, I'm really questioning what they're doing
and
where their heads were when they decided to do that.
The CW is a network that doesn't really cancel shows mid-season because they don't have a lot of replacements on the bench. But
I would rather watch reruns of America's Next Model.
Maybe they can just give all 2 hours on Friday nights to Whose Line Is It Anyway?
please, let's do that.
Let's do
Yeah.
that. Okay, so this is a formality, but will watch, might watch, avoid like the plague.
Avoid like the plague. There's not even a question. I'm not even gonna like. I'm not even pulled in at all. I just don't.
Yeah.
I don't even understand. I'm so at a loss. Like,
Well,
what does that even mean?
I feel the same way. This is an avoid like the plague if there ever was one.
Yes.
So we are through the 2 CW shows that are premiering in the fall, but there are 2 that will premiere sometime mid-season that we're also going to talk about. The first of which is called iZombie, and it's another comic book show.
It is.
Yeah, there's a comic book.
It's a DC comic, I
Is
think.
it? Ooh.
I'm actually I'm gonna check my facts on that because I'm not actually sure.
Well,
but I read somewhere that DC Comics. So they're doing
another DC comic.
Another DC comic.
The description on the CW's website is a med student turned zombie takes a job in the coroner's office to gain access to the brains she must reluctantly eat to maintain her humanity. But with each brain she consumes, she inherits the corpse's memories with the help of her medical examiner boss and a police detective. I'm not gonna get through it. She solves homicide cases in order to quiet the disturbing voices in her head. This is so stupid.
It is. Oh God. It's just. I can see the appeal in a comic. I can kind of see it.
Right.
It's a different story. Instead of her being a coroner, she's a grave digger, and so she has to dig up these bodies.
Yeah.
And that's cool.
What troubles me is that the second or the third word of that log line is a med student turned zombie. So it's not. I mean, that's just the adjective that describes her. It's like, oh yeah, she's a zombie. It's like wait, we're just positing that.
Right. Right. They're not even apparently she goes to a party.
Yeah.
And then it turns into a zombie feeding frenzy, which is just what.
Yeah, so we're already way off the reservation, and obviously a show like this isn't striving to be realistic in terms of
even a little bit.
So that's fine, but I do feel like if you get untethered that quickly, it might be a problem. And then, I mean, just seeing her in the makeup.
I know.
For the shots, awful. It just and everyone thinks she's goth because she's pale white, and it's just everything about this looks dumb. Everything looks so dumb.
It really does. And what thing that might have been interesting is if instead of telling us off the bat that she goes to this party and is then bitten by a zombie, if we were to find out her origin story or but they are telling you pretty much everything. There is no where's the plot?
Yeah, there's no island to go back
to. There's no island to it. This is not Arrow.
Yeah, right. You can't, because it's a change. It's a physical change that happens to her. Everything before that is really irrelevant. There's no build up to it. There's no training. She just became a zombie. What are they going to flash back to? And so, I mean, I imagine the show is just going to be a rather when you strip away all the zombie stuff, it's going to be a rather straightforward procedural about her inheriting the memories of murder victims and then working with the police to solve the murders.
Which is kind of like True Calling.
Yes.
That show with Eliza Dushku.
And
and that Zach Galifianakis.
The one with Jennifer Love Hewitt as well.
Ghost Whisperer.
Ghost Whisperer, right? Yeah, it's that kind of show.
This has been there, done that.
Yes.
And it doesn't make it better that there are zombies because honestly, I think the zombies thing is totally overdone.
Right. Yeah. I think
we've already got The Walking Dead, which is just not where we don't have to talk about that.
It's culture. The Walking Dead though is culturally dominant. It's the most watched show on television. So it's I mean that's right there occupying a large space of zombie stuff. And so I guess I appreciate that this is going to be a very different Vision, this isn't like an apocalyptic show. This is she
Right.
exists in the real world, and just zombies happen to exist in the real world. And it's not even her versus the zombies. It's her
No.
trying to solve homicides.
Right. So what do the zombies do?
I,
And
yeah,
I was reading up on it a little bit because, I wanted to see if there was at all of like cool, I don't know, if there was a pull at all. And
yeah,
like apparently like the monsters are like described via the concepts of the oversoul and the undersoul, which is like, Ralph Waldo
yes.
Emerson, which is really cool.
I read that too.
And like, yeah, and like the zombies are bodies without oversouls, so like they don't have thoughts, memories, and personalities,
Yes.
whereas people with the or entities with the undersoul have the heart and the appetite and the emotions and the fears, but like she has both.
Yeah.
And but I feel like they haven't even told, like, if they had told a little bit of that in the log line,
Right.
that would be really cool. Like she has to struggle, but that also sounds like Warm Bodies, that movie, or also Deadheads, which was a movie that I saw at midnight, which is very similar to Warm Bodies. It's all about these zombies that are, are conscious. They
Right.
know what they're doing.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just doesn't seem new to me.
Yes. I think that's it. This is a just various things that we've seen before pieced together. It's
Yeah.
those ideas about oversoul and undersoul, pieced together with a police procedural, pieced together with our current zombie obsession, culturally. So
Current, yeah.
yeah, so it just seems like there's not a lot here to draw you in. Like if
Yeah.
for people who don't read the comic books, I don't know what you're watching for.
Well, you know what? One thing that I will say is the draw for me, at least, was Rob Thomas,
Yes.
who did Veronica Mars. And I have a lot of respect for him. He wrote Veronica Mars, who is one of like the best female characters on like to ever be on television. I think she's a great, heroine. She's a great, hero to look up to and to want to. She's wonderful, and it's a well written show. It's really well crafted. And then, there was a movie, which was also great. And so
Sure.
he knows how to write.
Yes.
But I don't know what he's doing.
Well, yeah. Well,
Like, what?
maybe, I mean, there's no trailer out for this one yet, so
No.
maybe it will surprise us. But so far, it does not look very promising.
Right. I mean, I'm trying to think about like what Veronica Mars's log line looked like.
Yeah.
I'm like, I mean, did that like a teenage detective tries to solve the murder of her best friend while being an outcast at her high school? Like, that doesn't sound great, but
Right.
it doesn't sound as bad
No,
as this.
I think for me, this one loses me at the premise. The having to eat brains and all of this is just a little too far out there to start with. It's a starting point that I don't think I'm willing to go to. So
Yeah.
I am giving iZombie and Avoid Like the Plague. Sophia, what about you?
God, it pains me to say this, but because it's Rob Thomas, I have to
Sure.
give it a night watch.
I understand.
Because I want to support him.
You're
I
loyal.
gave money to the movie. I feel like I should support Rob Thomas and everything that he does. So it's a might watch for me, but if it's bad within the first 10 minutes, I'm out.
Okay. Very
'Cause
tentative
the-
might watch.
It is, because the pilot of Veronica Mars was amazing. Like, it had you in for the first
Okay. So
3 minutes.
You'll
so.
know quickly on this one.
Yes, I will.
All right, so let's get to our final CW show we're talking about. A show that I don't think anyone really knows much about.
I know nothing about this.
Yeah, there's no trailer, no screenshots. The CW site for it is like a shell, but
Yep.
we're going to talk about it anyway. It's The Messengers, with the logline of, when a mysterious object crashes down to Earth, a group of seemingly unconnected strangers dies from the energy pulse, but then they awaken to learn that they have been deemed responsible for preventing the impending apocalypse.
Ooh.
So it is another very modern CWE show in that it is sci-fi and world spanning and a big sort of a big sci-fi premise. It is written by the co-EP of Teen Wolf, Eogan O'Donnell.
I saw that.
Yeah.
I don't recognize that name, which is weird. But I'm like, really? Was that you?
But that is your world. So
yeah,
I mean,
that is my world.
Right. Right there.
Yeah. The thing is, I don't have much to say because I know nothing about this show.
Okay, hold on. I looked up the Teen Wolf writer. He's written one
He
episode.
wrote Galvanize. Yeah, Galvanize. We both did it.
Yes. Okay, we both looked him up. He wrote one episode.
Which is a good episode. I gave that was the one where I gave a really high rating and you were upset.
Yes.
Because I gave it such a high rating.
You weren't salty enough.
I wasn't salty. I got salty, though.
You did get salty. I was pleased. So this, I mean, we obviously don't have a whole lot to go on, but it does seem to fit with the rest of the CW schedule. It did not lose me at the premise. It is, from what I gather, very strongly based in the Book of Revelation. It is basically the four horsemen of the apocalypse are coming. Like, the apocalypse on Earth is beginning, and the main characters of the show are either in charge of preventing it or possibly welcoming it. Like, bringing it in.
And, it'll probably split them right down the middle.
It probably will.
I don't know how many there are, but there'll be some that are there for it, and there are some that want to stop it.
Yes.
That's a very normal kind of sci-fi fantasy thing to do.
And a CW thing.
And the CW thing. And it's not like the CW hasn't dealt with the apocalypse before. I mean, if you've watched anything of Supernatural, you know that there's been like a few.
I've read your reviews, so...
Oh, yeah, exactly. And I'm not, like, it just doesn't really seem... Like, I need something new. And this show doesn't seem new. Even though I've never even heard of a premise like this before.
Yeah. It's not a great premise in that you don't just... Like, when I read the premise for ABC's The Whispers, the idea that children's imaginary friends are actually aliens whispering them to kill the people around them. That's a great premise. Like, right off the bat, I'm in.
Yeah.
This is not a, like, right off the bat, I'm in. All this does is...
like...
Yeah.
When I was reading it, I kind of trailed off. Yeah. And I stopped paying attention a little bit, which is probably why I don't know anything about it.
It feels, it feels in the same vein as, like, no, I have no idea what the show is about, but sort of like Star-Crossed and these, like, The 100.
And, like, The 100.
Yeah, like these kind of second-tier CW shows that...
Which are holding on by a thread.
And Star-Crossed is already canceled.
And 100 got a tentative, like, it got a second season.
It'll premiere probably around this time next year. But this feels very much like one of those shows where it's gonna hang on, it'll get under a 1.0 demo rating, and it'll be on the bubble. So
it'll be like the Tomorrow People. It'll have that small group of followers that really, really want it to survive, but instead the CW would pick up something else, like they did, like, I don't know, what did they say? I don't know, like Beauty and the Beast or something.
Right, yeah, and so what I would love from this series, and seeing that the guy was associated with Teen Wolf, although now I know he's barely associated with Teen Wolf.
Barely. They wrote that for no reason.
Yeah, and I've only watched a few episodes of Teen Wolf, all at your urging, but what's interesting about that show is that it has a visual language to it that makes it feel distinct, and one of the things with these... One of these things with these CW shows is they kind of all look and feel the same. like Arrow has great fight scenes, but all these CW shows, these sort of action dramas, all look pretty similar to me. And it's not bad, but I would love it if one of these shows was actually visually interesting. And so, like, a show like this that has a pretty generic premise that we're already sort of grouping in with these second-level shows, if it did something interesting with its cinematography or with its music, and maybe it'll work, maybe it won't, but I would love for the CW to, like, try to be interesting with one of these shows, as opposed to just churn them out.
I definitely agree, because they do know what works for them, but they can't keep renewing or creating these shows that do the exact same thing. Otherwise, they're not going to get anywhere, and they're going to, each show is going to get canceled.
Right.
Like, and they'll keep bringing on new shows and keep trying to come up with these new premises that could be really cool if they just went a little bit outside of the box.
Yeah, and I mean, like, we're not asking them to do it with, like, Arrow or The Flash. Like, when they have a valuable property that has a pretty good chance of being a hit, I mean, I totally understand going safe with shows like that, but a show like this that, on paper at least, doesn't seem like it has a great chance to really make any kind of impact, it would be really cool if they tried something. And again, it might not work, but I think that would be a more interesting fate than just sort of playing it like Starcross did, where it just is here and gone, and no one will remember it 6 months from now.
Right. Like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even know what show you're talking about. I'm like, Starcross, is that like, I don't know, Stardust, that movie?
And you're the CW super fan, so.
I am. Well, I'm not I wouldn't say super fan. I'm a Supernatural super fan.
Yes. Well, I feel like you're such a super fan of Supernatural, it kind of spreads out too. And you love Arrow too, so I mean,
I do love Arrow.
Two right there. It's two of the 10 poles.
Some Oliver Queen shirtless.
I know you do.
Hang out, all sweaty.
Oh boy, we're okay. It's time to wrap up. So okay, we only have 4 pilots to choose from, and I think I know your answer to both these questions.
Wait, but we have to say how we feel about this one first.
Oh gosh, yeah.
I got it. Don't worry.
Thank you for keeping me on track. As soon as you started with your Oliver Queen fanfiction, I was ready to fail. I was pulling the ripcord.
That is fanfiction, Kyle. That is real. That is in the show. I bet there are videos just of him working out on YouTube. I'm gonna go look at that.
I was gonna say I'm sure you have them pulled up right now.
I don't, but I will. Okay.
So I am giving the Messengers a might watch simply because I don't know anything either way about it.
Yeah, same. And honestly, as the trailers come out, we'll see where my might watch if I waffle at all, because we have no idea what it's about. What is this mysterious object that's crashing down to Earth? Is it a plane? Is it a stone? Is it like what? Is it a human? Like, what is it?
Could be anything.
It could be anything, and we don't know really who the cast is, and we know nothing about it. So as the previews and trailers start to come out, I think we'll know a little bit more about where we stand with it. But right now, it's a might watch.
Sure.
Because I have no idea what it is.
Yep. So okay, to wrap up, Sophia, CW pilot you're most excited about.
Oh man, I am so excited about The Flash, Kyle.
Really?
I am like, no, actually, I'm gonna change it. No, yeah, I'm so excited about The Flash. It's the only one that I said that I'm definitely 100% gonna watch. And I think that they know what they're doing, and if the CW sticks with that, they're gonna have a good show. And I think that if they do what we talked about, make Arrow a little darker, make The Flash kind of a happy-go-lucky, but still a little bit dark. I think it's gonna be a really strong show, and it's gonna bring them a lot of money.
Yes, well, then that's the trick with the show, with a lighter show, is that when a light show does go dark, it means more than when a show just operates in darkness. And so I think The Flash could absolutely be a series that is sort of fun and jokey a lot, and has some laugh lines, and then when it gets serious when it needs to be. And I think that would serve it really well.
I agree.
This is a really easy choice because, honestly, 2 of these look awful. One of them we don't know anything about, and then The Flash looks pretty good. So so
we don't know.
By default, I'm going with The Flash.
Yeah, no.
And the one you're least excited about.
Oh God, I just can't even deal. Jane the Virgin. It's going to air and get canceled immediately, and it makes me sad because I understand what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
But at the same time, this is not the way to do it. And hopefully we'll see a different type of show later on.
Sure.
That maybe that they're trying to do this whole thing, appeal to a different type of audience and make it not so whitewashed. That'd be great. I'm so all for that, but not like this.
No, this is a this is a misstep. We can already say this is going to go badly. But I wouldn't be opposed to CW sort of reserving that Friday night time slot for this kind of show. By this kind of show, I really mean a show that is not about superheroes or comic books or supernatural stuff. I think it's fine for the CW to stay a little bit diversified. This just isn't the right vehicle for that.
Yep, I agree.
All right, Sophia, so that wraps it up. Thank you so much for being here.
You're so welcome. Thank you for having me.
And I'll have you back in the fall to talk about Constantine.
Yeah, we talked a lot about The Flash. Oh my God, we're going to talk about Constantine so much.
And The Flash.
I'm so excited. And The Flash.
So we'll have you back multiple times. How can people, between now and then, how can people keep up with you?
Well, I am on Twitter constantly. My handle is at Sophia, Sophia M. Porter, POR. T-E-R. I don't know if people don't know how to spell that, but I always,
Listen,
I like to give it to him anyway.
You spelled it with confidence, so that's good.
I did. It's opposed to last time where I forgot my own name. And I was like, and that's, that's how you can contact me. Like I said, it's the easiest way. So, hit me up.
And you and I will be on and off this year tweeting The Bachelorette. As we tend to do.
Because of our great war that we have going on.
Our fantasy draft.
That you've already said that I've won.
No, I deny that through official channels.
Refer to my Twitter, please.
Are you watching Under the Dome this summer?
I'm not. Because I only watched the first episode of it.
And it was horrible.
It was just awful.
Really, really bad. So I am 1,000% in this summer. I'll be watching it and tweeting it.
I will be watching Teen Wolf this summer.
Oh, that's right.
It comes back on June 23rd.
All right.
And that's what I will be doing.
You'll be writing about it for showratings.tv.
I will be writing about it.
All right.
Yay!
Hooray.
And that'll be my first thing.
It will.
My first review for a long time. So.
That's right. So that wraps up the second of our 5 scheduled special pilot preview episodes.
Yay!
Thank you. Check back again soon for the rest of the networks. You can listen to all the episodes of the showratings.tv Pilot Roundtable podcast at southgatemediagroup.com. Follow me on Twitter at KyleLovesTV and showratings at showratingstv. And you can read myself and Sophia's writing at www.showratings.tv. I've been Kyle Tremblay. Thanks for listening.